Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Monday Night Chat here with the Disc Jockey News TV crew. Tonight, we're going to be talking sales, how to improve your sales, how to become a prettier person, and how to win the Princess Crown come this summer with Jason Jones.
All will be revealed.
I've got to shut the volume off.
We're not gonna hold back.
We're not gonna. We're gonna come through with everything. If you guys have wanted to know about it, that's what we're here for tonight. So, first off, we're gonna be talking sales and things. Questions. If you are watching us on DJNTV, you can click in the lower right-hand corner, pop out to YouTube. In the right side, there is a chat area. Go there. If you've got some questions, that's the place to put those. Jason, you are going to be doing a workshop coming up here at Mobile Beat Las Vegas, and you're going to be talking about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart when it comes to selling weddings. Give us a little overview of what you're going to be talking about in Vegas.
Sure. Well, actually, what we're going to be doing is it's going to be a 90-minute workshop where we really explore like how you listen and how you don't listen, and just on its surface, that sounds kind of dry. Like, well, I listen fine. What difference does that make? Right? Everybody listens. But in actuality, we all hear, but we don't all necessarily listen. So to give you an example, our listening is fairly specialized. So if you're a DJ, which most of our audience is, right, you have a listening for music. You hear music in ways that other people don't. Like you'll hear a bridge where you might mix out. You might hear a place where the bridge is there, but it has too many other things to mix in and out of. These things are invisible to everybody else who's listening. Only your listening is tuned into that. Now, did you know that there's also listening for opportunity? If you feel like you're really good at your craft and your trade and you go out and you perform, but you never seem to hear anybody interested in what you have to offer, or you find yourself in your sales meetings sitting there like trying to convince them that you're the guy, then perhaps the focus is too much on what you're saying and not enough just on listening. Have you ever noticed, John, when we talk on the phone, or
our conversations, this is going to go in a bad direction, Jason.
Right? So we John and I have like semi-regular conversations, and there will be times in the conversation where you'll say, hello, are you there? And nothing has happened. There was a pause in the conversation, and maybe John was talking, but nothing really technically happened at all. There's really no change in the call, but yet John felt like I wasn't there. Now in that moment, John, I kind of drifted away. My attention and thoughts had drifted away from you, and you somehow sensed it on the other end. Do you recall times like this happening?
If I say no, will that make you feel better?
Well, perhaps turn it around another way, being that you were the one talking, and especially when it comes to technology, we always assume it's like, oh, maybe they lost connection or something like that. But I mean, think about the times when you're listening to somebody on the phone. No, they can't see you, and your attention drifts away from them while they're talking, and they stop and ask you if you're still there or if you're listening.
Oh, for sure.
Does that happen?
Oh, especially, in our situation, both of us have had children or have children at home. And that becomes a recipe for inattentive phone conversations.
Exactly. But so the point is actually that people experience you listening, like you experience how others listen to you, and they experience being listened to. It goes both ways. It's its own experience, just like talking and how you articulate and how you explain is its own experience. So too is the experience of actually listening and being listened to. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of exploring of how you actually can determine where you're at. Like, how good of a listener are you? How good are you at actually listening for opportunities when people bring them up, or when you're at that sales meeting and they're actually telling you what you want, but you're so busy thinking about what you're going to say to convince them that you're not actually hearing what they say to speak to that, which this could make the big difference between booking a show or not booking a show, in addition to looking at like, how do others experience you listening? So we're going to do a little exercise, you and I, John, and that's mostly to demonstrate for the folks, because it's hard. This is better experience in a workshop where we're all sitting face to face.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be, as I thought about this, I thought, well, how do we frame this? Well, we'll frame this in such a way that you can go and try this with your mom, your friend, your significant other, another DJ, something like that. Go and try this and see what the experience is for yourself to really kind of get an idea of that experience, because it's really best experience. That's why we're doing all of this in a workshop setting
For sure.
in Las Vegas. That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Sounds good. That sounds like a great thing to do. Before we get to it though, Jason, you jumped back. One of the key reasons why this is important, I think, was in your last sentence, 3, 4, 7, 8, 10 back. I was listening. You mentioned that the client many times will tell us exactly what we want to know or what we need to know, and I don't think we can probably overestimate or overemphasize that enough. Is that they will tell you what you need to know to be successful in the sales meeting or the sales time, if we are present and listening.
Mm-hmm. So, absolutely, they'll tell you if you're really listening for it. And so the question is like, well, I think I listened for it. People think, we all think that we listen for it. So let's talk about like what listening to understand is. Where that discovery shows up is in listening to understand, because once you can speak to that couple's priorities and what's important to them, then they can be like, oh, now they're at ease. They're like, okay, this person can do all these things that we wanted or create what we wanted or in the way or whatever it is that's of their concern. And you've settled that for them. Only at that point can you start telling them about anything other additional and amazing, right? Because if their priorities haven't been addressed, they're still wondering about that, waiting to get to that as you talk about all these other great things, right? Which they may just give up, they may get tired. Just think about the last experience that you were the one talking to the salesperson that didn't seem to be connecting to what you really wanted, right? And to how your interest in that person really started to drift. Yeah. So the access to that is in what's called listening to understand. And listening to understand is basically just that. Like you're just really trying to get the world of what they're saying and what they're sharing and what's important to them. And part of that, and the way that you're listening to understand is because you might ask them clarifying questions about what they say. You might paraphrase what they say. So what you said, John, is that you're saying that you want something that's like really connective, and you want something that your family is like, playful, and that your family is like really, exciting and joyful at events, and, paraphrase for them. And they're like, yes, you're getting it. You're like, okay, great. Awesome. Now tell me more. And so like you're taking this all in and really give up or do your best to give up worrying about what am I going to say when they get done talking? Because truthfully, if you're spending all of your energy just trying to understand what's most important to them, you'll know exactly what to say. The saying part, the talking, is actually easy once they tell you exactly what they would really like to talk about and what they're really interested in.
Very much so. Very much so. It really becomes, you get into their homeroom, we'll call it, what have you. It's really, right. It does become easy.
When I was selling events, one of the things that tripped me up the most that I noticed, and I think that I lost the sales on the most, was all the time that I tried to convince them of what should matter to them and what should be important to them. And trying to convince them of those things, whether or not that was their priority or not. As if I came to the meeting not really interested in discovering their priorities, but really telling them what's important about entertainment and entertainer and the stuff that I did and the way that I did it and why that was so important. Trying to press that down upon them rather than like really pull out what it is, have them tell you exactly what they want and say, guess what? I can do A, B, and C that you just. They'll be like, oh, you can, you're the person we're looking for, and that sounds exaggerated easy, but sometimes it is that simple.
It really is. Yeah.
Because you're making that connection. The other thing is think about this couple. Now you're going to create something for them on some level. It's a personal event and you're going to create something somewhat personal for them. So consideration for all of them, whether they say it or not, is how interested you are in what their wishes are, what's really important to them. So you're starting to see like how important, like listening is actually almost more important than how you articulate yourself after you discover what's important to them.
For sure. Let's jump into it, Jason. We've been talking a lot about it. Let's do some of the workshop ideas and give some tools that they can use.
Right. Okay. So we'll do the exercise. We'll reflect on it, and then we'll just cover the 3 levels of listening so that you can kind of consider like where you're at when you do this exercise yourself.
Okay.
So the first exercise is, and actually I want to see if there's if there is an effect that is across the board, and an effect that since like there's people listening right now electronically, but they're not in the room, and you and I are in separate locations. This is all electronic.
Yep.
So I'm really curious to see what your experience of this is going to be.
Yeah.
So what I would like you to do, John, is I would like you to share, and I am going to, and I'm going to be on the listening end of things.
Very good.
Okay? So if you can think back to something that was really exciting that happened.
How far back, or how long do you want me to talk?
Well, probably say a minute.
Okay.
A minute or two.
So as I've talked about in some of our prior shows, I've talked about when I was a youngster, the passion I had for our old record player. I grew up playing a Sesame Street album. This was a Ernie and Bert sing-along album, and it was probably, as a child, one of the earliest and fond memories of vinyl. And it just kind of drove me to learn and play more with the whole vinyl situation. And after a period of time, of course, the vinyl goes, and we haven't had that for a while. And it was one of those things, a memory from my childhood that I really kind of missed. And I wasn't able to share that with my children because that music wasn't on DVD. So I went and I found it on eBay. I now have a copy, and now I'm in search of a turntable to play my vinyl. There you go.
So what was your experience of being listened to?
You were distracted. You were over there and over here. You had other things going on, and there wasn't any feedback. Was there, whether it be visual feedback with making, in essence, digital or online eye contact, or even like little cues that said that you were really paying attention to me. So I felt like I was just kind of talking to my camera.
Okay. And so as far as like being excited about what you're talking about and being excited about sharing, what was the experience in like kind of keeping that going?
It was tough, really, because this is a topic, if you guys have seen me talk about this topic, it is something I'm kind of excited about and passionate about because I can bring this to my children. And when I wasn't getting any kind of feedback or any response whatsoever, I was like, oh. So
did it feel like it was like kind of harder to keep going? Or
for sure. It was harder for me to keep going and being motivated because I just like, oh, well, maybe I'm boring him to death. Maybe I should just be quiet now.
At what point was there any point that you wanted to stop?
Pretty much once you turned away and you were starting to look at other things, whether it's the clock on the wall or whatever you were looking at, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking anymore.
Right. Like, so you were kind of like being a trooper and like kind of, well, I'll just keep going and finish, I guess.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, great. All right. So now what I want to do is I want you to share the exact same thing with me.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
So as a youngster, one of my earliest fond memories I have of the whole vinyl scene was a Sesame Street album I had. It was Ernie and Bert's sing-along. It was their bathtub sing-along album. It was this crazy record where the guys were Bert was in the tub, Ernie pushes a piano in, and they sing along, and a character coming in. This was something that, as a child, I just loved. It was an album that I would play over and over and over, and eventually broke the album, and then vinyl went away. And
oh no, what did you play then?
Well, but then we were getting out of the records.
And you moved on to
moved on to something else and such. But it's a memory and something I wanted to share with my children. But it was never on DVD or CD or anything. You've never been able to find those songs. So what I ended up doing was a few years back, I was looking on eBay and I found the album in mint condition. So I bought the album, and then I was able to so I have a vinyl collection starting again.
Really?
With a Sesame Street album.
That's amazing.
So now I'm looking. I'm in I've been looking, and I went to NAMM last week looking for a turntable. So
did you find one?
Yes, I actually found a couple of different options. Now I just to figure out which one. But
can you afford them?
There's the problem.
What was your experience of being listened to this time?
Much different because of your paying attention to me and engaging me. Now it was actually easier to add more detail because I felt that there was more value in what I was saying. So it just felt natural for me to add more to the conversation.
So when you're talking to a client and you're thinking about a lot of things while they're talking, or you've pretty much, what you want to say, so you're waiting for them to stop. So what do you think that the impact on that person is that just met you?
I think it really is kind of off-putting. That if I'm trying to, I as a DJ am trying to, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next and not reacting or being in the moment. I think it really would be off-putting to that other person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yeah,
you can almost see it
exactly.
in their eyes that they're waiting for, as someone who's talking to a person who's in that state. I can almost see it in their eyes that they're just waiting for me to shut up so that they can go on with whatever they were going to do. And it's like, well, but I had a good point, or this is something important to me. I hate to say it, I've run into that numerous times at car dealerships. That's where you run into that a
Yeah.
lot.
What's the experience of what is your experience of them? Like, what is your, like, what would you call that experience?
Um, it generally will help me to make my decision that that's not the dealership, or certainly not the salesperson for me. And I have walked out of many Metro. 4 years ago, when we were looking to buy a new car, we had to go to the Metro to shop, and I did experience this firsthand from the other side. And Lori and I did walk out on a few of them because they just wouldn't be listening to what our concerns and our needs were.
Yeah, they just weren't interested. They were coming at you with all their features and benefits. It's what I would call the experience of being sold to.
Very
You
much
know,
so.
oh, I don't like salespeople. I don't like being sold to. Don't sell me anything. I think that that's what they're talking about. When you're not tuned in, or I, when they're not tuned in to what I'm interested in, or you're really interested in looking at and figuring out and understanding, and they're really only just trying to push whatever agenda or convince you of what you should like, then you're experiencing being sold to. And so what's the experience have you ever, and then conversely, if somebody's like really, really listening and really trying to get the world of what's really important to you to be able to convey how they would be the solution for that or could help you with that. And what has your experience been with that? Have you ever had experiences like
Oh,
that?
certainly. We've had a varying levels of that experience. And sometimes it's been a very good buying experience. And sometimes they've listened and picked up on some things that weren't as big of things for us as we probably made them seem in our conversation. And it actually, it's like, no, well, I know we mentioned that, but you know what?
Yeah.
We're okay. It's not a deal breaker.
Well, and that's probably where paraphrasing was missing, where they would be saying to you, like, so are these two things the most important to you about this refrigerator? Where you'd be like, well, no, really, the egg shelf isn't that big a deal, but the water in the door, that's a big deal. And then, oh, okay. Then it's like, clarifying that and really being ensuring and making sure that you're clear.
That's a great point, Jason, and that's exactly what did not happen in that one particular case and he was so intent on basically making that mental list of all the different things that were good and bad that when it came down to it, it's like, oh, well, what about that one? Well, that one is missing the egg shelf, and you said you wanted egg, and well, no, that's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, no, totally. Totally. And I'm in the coaching business. So I'm a business coach. And in my business, I don't actually ask people to do business with me. People have to ask me, Jason, I would like to try coaching. I'd be interested in coaching. Right.
Right.
It's very inappropriate if I said, John, can I coach you?
Mm-hmm.
It's really inappropriate. It just doesn't really work. Okay.
Yeah.
So what for me, all of my sales is listening. And it's remarkable, like when I really, really focus in and listen as intently as I can to really get the sense of the other person, is it more and more when I get to the end of a meeting, even somebody that I just met, they're like, I think I might be looking into this coaching stuff.
Yeah.
And it's because they're experiencing being heard. And I share that not to say like that it's reflection on my coaching, but more so like people's reaction to how viscerally positive it is toward the other person when they feel like they really got heard. Because it doesn't happen very often. It's a skill you can develop and really stand out. You want to differentiate? You want to differentiate yourself from everyone else? Like get really good at listening. So good at listening that you hear what's important to them, just like you hear the bridge in the song coming out. So let me just go down. Let's just kind of put this in a frame of reference.
Sure.
Okay? So there's 3 levels of listening that we're talking about. The first level is the level of me. Okay. And in this level of listening, it would be like if I was getting directions from you. So it's like, hi, John, excuse me, I need to get to the bank. So what's the best way to get? And so then like all the basically all the correlating questions are just to get the adequate information that I need out of you to be able to then go and complete on that mission to get to the bank, right? So you're just gathering information for yourself. Then there's the second level. This is the next. This is the level of we, okay? So this is, an exchange where you're hearing each other. And this is what you'll often hear in casual conversation, right? Where people are picking up things and things like that. But still, even in the conversation, you can tell that the other people are often kind of filling in the blank on your stories, or they're filling in the blank with the things that you share. Like, you don't have to share much, and they just kind of will just fill it in for you and move the conversation forward.
Sure.
So listening with the intent to respond, so I need to get enough information to have an appropriate response. Not like the days when I used to listen terribly before I got practiced at this, and Kelly told me about a rabbit dying, and I would come back and go, "Oh, that's great." Wrong response. Like, you weren't listening. Okay.
No, I love Hassenpfeffer. It's great.
Guilty as charged. So that's an extreme level, but still, it's like listening to get enough information to be able to respond to what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's level 3, and this is the level of you. So what that means is that all of my attention, all of my focus, all of my energy is focused on you and understanding you. And this is something that is like, it's simple to discuss, like we're describing it, difficult to execute because it takes practice like any other skill. It's a skill to be practiced because we have all kinds of what in our heads, thoughts and opinions. And, even as you're listening to me, John, I almost called you Tom. Even as you're listening to me, John, you probably are naturally in your head, and you're a good listener. I know that about you because we've had lots of conversations, and you're able to focus in, but you're probably having thoughts and opinions about the things that I'm saying, and things like there's things going on in your head that are also competing with just getting the information. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, for sure, because that's part of what we do as you well know, as hosting a show, is that we're listening to be able to respond properly, and I'm listening to. If there's you come to a point, I need to have a follow-up question, or I need to have a follow-up thought, or I need to bridge us to something. So
yeah,
there's just these things that are floating around, and can be difficult.
There's a lot going on. So it's like, so in other words, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's just, it's with practice that gets quieter. And then you start to realize that actually by really figuring out what your customers are really, really interested in, it becomes really easy to discover. And then you can really share and speak to those things. Now they're excited. Now they're open to your ideas. Only at that point are they really open to your ideas to expand and embellish and build upon that, because you've addressed what's really, really important to them. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And what we're going to be doing in the workshop that we do in Vegas is we're going to be doing a lot of working with each other one-on-one to really experience that. What you and I demonstrated is it's kind of intellectually interesting. But once we get in there and we start actually coaching in that workshop, then it's going to be an experience where you're going to experience how you listen, how you're listened to, what the experience is going both ways, and really give you a frame of reference and some really solid tools to be able to take with you to practice and enhance that skill with velocity.
I think that's a great what they'll be doing. But I wanted to see, could we do something right now, Jason,
Sure.
where we're giving some ideas, because obviously most of us have family, we're living with someone, whether it's family, and this isn't just a sales principle or sales. This is really on relationships with.
It's going to improve your love life. This is snake oil.
This is, except it works. Exactly.
So it's not snake oil.
So let's look at this. Look at this from the standpoint of in a relationship. If a person wants to practice with their significant other, what are some tips? A couple of tips we can give them here. We've got only about 5 minutes left. What are some tips that we can give folks when it comes to being that attentive listener, that level 3, that you listener?
Probably the best thing is when someone is talking to you, to literally hang on every word. You look them in the eye and you hang on every word that they tell you and really listen close. And the first time you do it, you'll have all the distractions. It'll seem louder. The distractions will. And it's something that the more that you practice doing that, the easier and easier it will become, and that the quieter basically that other stuff will be, and the easier it'll become to really focus in on that person. However, the very first time that you do it, the person you experience won't experience you like, oh, well, that was nice. You seem to be listening a little better. They will experience like, wow, you're really listening to me.
And why are you staring at me? You're freaking me out, man.
Think back to that time. Have you ever had a time where you had a room that listened so intently it freaked you out? When you're like, good evening, and then went, and everybody focused on you, and you're like, ugh. It's like you just like totally panicked, like you're really listening to me. Yeah, that's what you call feeling others listening. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, very powerful stuff. And for those of you who are out there in wondering about this is something that Jason and I've had this conversation over the last few years. Just really around, part of it was around our hosting these DJNTV shows. Is that this is a major component of what we do. So it's something that I have been practicing with, and I can definitely see this helping my sales when I sit down across the table from a couple, and to be able to listen and find out what's important to them and who they are and how we can create something together. It's just been an invaluable skill. It's great stuff.
Yeah, and I hope folks watching tonight found it useful. Jot down the notes there. It's like, this isn't rocket science. Just take some of these simple tips and just start playing with them, practice them, explore them. That's the best way to really discover where you're at and how you can improve, is just by exploring it.
Yeah, for sure, because it's a practice skill, and it's. Yes. I think the best way to describe it is it should be a guided practice skill, especially at the beginning, because it's one of those things that you could learn it the hard way, or you can reduce that learning curve and be coached and guided through it. And that's what you and I have done over the last few years, is really develop that, because we have had that kind of guiding. Good.
Yes. Well, that, and then now being in the business of coaching, I'm in the business of listening.
Precisely.
So it's like, it's a really important skill, but it's like, it's on par with being able to hear the music, like hear what's behind the music. It's the same skill. It's just, it's applied differently. Very
much so. Because there's nothing like being in a room full of DJs. And Brian Redd was one that showed this to me. Hey, MJ. Brian Redd showed this he was at Mystic Lake with us a few years back, and we're sitting down for dinner, and no one is hearing really the background music except Brian, and he's like making constant comments about the different songs and different things, and it's like, and he goes, "Oh yeah, and here's an oldie. I remember this song from da 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 da. I remember this band," and it's like, "Oh my gosh, no."
Right. He's like totally tuned in. His ear is tuned to it, and so too can your ear be tuned to people, other people in your life, and clients, and prospects, and just everyone in your world.
Yeah. Jason, thank you very much for being with me tonight.
You're welcome. This is super fun. I can't wait to come back. I like doing this. Lower my camera though, I think, next time.
Yeah, well, it's okay. It was our first time, of having the camera and doing it. It's been a while since you've been on one of the shows. You and Bill have been so busy recording.
Yes, right.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll put links, gang. We'll get those all set up, and we'll put those links in the description. This will probably go up tomorrow, because I'm not gonna have time tonight to get those up. Jason, you can get me those links, send those over to me, and we'll put the things up so you guys can find out more about what's gonna be happening at Mobile Meet Las Vegas 2016.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, and you can always feel free to private message me. I'm always open for a conversation.
Good. Well, thank you, Jason. You can bounce along and go save the world one more client at a time, and MJ and I are going to talk about the big stuff.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much, John. Have a great night. Good night, everybody.
I just want to say, Jason, you look like you're talking into a security camera.
I know, right?
Into someplace.
You busted me.
It's all good though.
That's because I'm being all artsy and avant-garde. Aren't you impressed?
Oh, nice. Very cool.
I'm going to start doing these shows over my shoulder like this.
Oh boy. All right. Thank you much.
All right,
Jason.
Thanks so much. We'll take care of you guys.
All right.